All right, it appears recording has started. So this is a reminder that this is a public meeting and it will be recorded. And let's see, I'm going to give it just probably another 30 seconds. Again, thanks for your patience as we get GRC members to join, and then we'll be hopping into roll call. All right. So thank you so much for joining. My name is Casey Beck. I am the Behavioral Health Program Manager at the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. Today is August 12th, and we are convening the Impacts Grant Review Committee for some special business. And let's go ahead and again acknowledge this is a public meeting and it is being recorded. For the sake of time, I believe we have disabled chat. But if there are any questions, please direct them to myself or the co-chairs, Ken Santagren and Samantha Byers. Let's go ahead and call roll. Will, if you would mind. Thank you.
Of course, Casey. Co-chair Samantha Byers.
Present.
Co-chair Ken Santagren.
Present.
Jeremiah Stromberg. Judge Suzanne Shanti.
Present.
Liz Weber. Steve Gunnels.
Present.
Eric Swallow. Chief Marsha Harnden.
Here.
Commissioner Claire Hall. Alicia Beamer.
Present.
Stacy Brubaker.
Present.
Dr. Greg Brigham.
Present.
Sheriff Curtis Landers.
Present.
Dr. Sharon Stanfield. RJ Navarro. Senator Gelser Bluin.
I'm here.
Rep. Charlie Conrad.
Here.
Janie Gullickson.
Present.
Michelle Mason. Paul Solomon. And Carl McPherson. That's 14, Casey. You are muted, Casey.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate that. So confirm that we do have quorum. I am grateful for that. Let's see. Thanks for your patience here. I am working remotely from DC and have one little laptop screen today, so I appreciate everyone's patience. All right. So we are here because at the last meeting on August 7th, this committee moved to reconsider the Clackamas County application. Ken, I see your hand is raised, so I will defer over to you.
Sorry, about 5 seconds ago, I accidentally exited the meeting when I meant to raise my hand, so I'm back. But also, I just wanted to interject really quickly. I know that we have one item on the agenda today that we want to take care of, but also my co-chair and I, we wanted to extend an invitation to Representative Krupp and Senator Lieber in their capacity as the co-chairs of the Joint Addiction Committee, who oversaw the crafting of this bill, just to come and say a few words to us if they were so inclined. I know that Senator Lieber could not make it today, but I believe that we have Representative Krupp on the line. Just to provide just a few thoughts before we dive in today. And so Rep. Krupp, if you could confirm, I think I saw you there, but you may be on another page where I can't see you at the moment.
Right. Ken, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to turn it right over to you, Representative, and then members of the committee, we can get started on our work today.
Right. Thank you, Ken, and thank you, members of the committee. I'm Jason Krupp, State Representative for House District 55, and I was co-chair of the Joint Committee along with Senator Lieber last legislative session. Senator Lieber wanted to be here today for the beginning of this meeting as well as with me, but she is on a flight right now. But we have talked about remarks that we wanted to make to the committee. First, I want to say thanks to all the members of the committee for all the time and effort you put in evaluating these grant applications. I know each of you has other professional responsibilities, and we both truly appreciate your service in this area. Executive implementation of legislative creative programs take effort, and we're truly appreciative of your efforts. And I want to thank each of the county grant applicants for their work to create new programs to help people struggling with addiction in their communities. When we started off with the joint committee, our broad goal with the legislation was to continue to invest in the treatment infrastructure that we needed throughout the state. And when it came to the area that you are tackling, we wanted to chart a new path on how we treat people found in possession of drugs such as fentanyl and methamphetamine. We wanted a different approach than the Measure 110 decriminalization, and we wanted a different approach to the way our systems worked pre-Measure 110. We wanted a treatment-first approach. We sought to encourage our communities to continue to braid together public safety and behavioral health responses to help people with addiction. And we appreciate that we have seen those efforts and growing partnerships in each of the applications that have been before you. With House Bill 4002, we provided partnership and financial support on a state level with our counties to help our counties begin deflection programs. And we realized, with the exception of Marion County, that these would be new programs and new approaches. We view this as an ongoing partnership between the state and our local communities. And to that end, Senator Lieber and I have been visiting with various counties to see firsthand the work they're doing to expand treatment services and to stand up deflection programs. We are actually previously scheduled, and we are going to be in Clackamas County this week and Multnomah County next week. With 4002, we created a broad framework for local communities that allowed local communities to experiment and innovate, for them to work together with their partners to find local solutions based on local issues and resources. And we are incredibly appreciative of all the applicants and the work that they are doing to step up for the challenge of creating these new programs and these new approaches. We knew these programs would look different, and I think we actually encouraged that. We knew that programs in Clackamas County or Clatsop County or Columbia County would look different. We wanted people struggling with addiction to be able to make a quicker connection to those services and have the opportunity to avoid formal prosecution if they were caught in possession of drugs. And we appreciate that all the applicants are taking significant strides in that direction. We viewed this as a period of innovation and experimentation. And we built in data collection reporting back so that we'd be able to learn from the different approaches. Our intention is to be able to take the lessons from this period to establish moving forward what best practices and standards for future deflection programs and funding will be. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to speak with the panel, and thanks again for your efforts to help and your commitment to help us moving forward with these new programs, to be able to learn from these new programs and hopefully be able to create sustainable programs moving forward to better help people struggling with addiction. Thank you again.
Thank you, Representative. We really appreciate you taking some time to address us today. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, committee. I also want to thank you all for humoring us and letting us have Representative Krupp come in and provide a few words for us this afternoon. So let's dive right in. Just as a reminder, I know that it wasn't that long ago since we've seen each other, but at our last meeting, we had some robust discussion in response to a motion made by District Attorney Steve Gunnels about Clackamas County. We learned a lot about Robert's Rules of Order when we made our way through that meeting. And at the conclusion, Judge Shanti made a similar motion to reconsider Clackamas County's application, but in a separate meeting, since we had finally wrapped up all of the initial analyses and votes on our other counties. So here we are today to have that discussion. Just a few things logistics-wise before we jump in. I just want to mention that, we've had a very robust discussion about all of, about Clackamas County over several meetings. And so my hope is today, similar to the comment that I made last time, that, each committee member certainly we welcome any and all thoughts that you have. We only have an hour. Well, now we have 50 minutes to make those thoughts known. So I think a single statement by each committee member, to the extent you want to, please restrict yourself to that. Also, we do have some representatives from Clackamas County online. I know that I've seen DA Wentworth. I've also seen Bill Stewart from the DA's office. I've not had time to look at the other, if there are other folks from the county who are on at the moment. But if the committee so desires, and that's something we can discuss, we could request further information from the county if that's something the committee would like. But with that, I'll just ask if my co-chair has any thoughts. I'm just hoping that we can hopefully put this to bed in the next 49 minutes. But Sam, I'll turn it over to you if there's anything you'd like to add before we can dive right into our thoughts on Clackamas County and a reconsideration.
Thanks, Ken. No, I don't have any additional thoughts. I think we should just begin our discussion and finish out the work that we have.
Thanks, Sam. So just like we've been doing, if folks would like to raise their hands, if you'd like to provide further thoughts on Clackamas County, or alternatively, if anybody would like to make a motion, that is certainly open at the moment as well. But I'm kicking it over to everybody and looking for hands raised. Please go ahead, Judge Shanti. You're first on the list.
Thank you. So a few things. One is we had a motion and Robert's Rules of Orders told us, well, that we couldn't have that motion. So in the motion to reconsider, I think it was that we go ahead and grant the application, but the line, was it 13, would not be filled with the money that line represented, but they would still have the 200,000 to do with in a different way. Is that your memory, Ken, what the last motion was?
Yes, Judge, that was the motion at the beginning of the meeting. I think that the way that the way that it was proposed for that line 13 reallocation is, since we are telling all of the awarded counties that they actually have a little bit more money to work with, they can provide an amendment request to us. And so we would be expecting, should that motion pass, we would just be expecting the county to come back to us with a reallocation request for those funds. And so we would see that it wouldn't just be, I didn't want to mischaracterize it the way that you described, or just make sure we are all clear that that money would still be there, but we would need to hear from the county as to how they would like to reallocate that portion, since that's actually a decent amount of money as well. Yeah, it is. So, well, here's my thoughts. I've been thinking about this a lot since our last meeting, and I think, unfortunately, when we started off, we didn't get our ducks in a row in terms of some really critical definitions. For instance, is this a deflection or is it a combination deflection, diversion, grant? I think I spoke to that a little bit. And we also, the thing that we didn't, I think, properly discuss and at least come to terms with as a committee and see, what the majority thought or something like that, was this issue about what's our role in terms of trying to figure out how the money is being spent. And we talked about that in Washington County. I brought up my hesitation really to even vote for the grant because I think it is so top heavy administratively, given what I think the number of people that are going to be helped. We'll see that we'll be testing that. So with Clackamas County, it was the same concerns for me. The same concern was that a lot of the money, more of the money than I thought was appropriate, was going to go to DA positions. I didn't quite understand why that was, and I can't still see how a 0.75 FTE could, for instance, cost that much money, and what is that person going to really be doing?
So again, I'm gonna raise the issue is this isn't as a punishment thing. It's a really as a to get the evidence and let's figure out what it's about. Is I'd like to see timesheets with respect to what are these positions actually doing? Is their time actually being spent on the diversion program, or is it being spent on something else? And if it's being spent as a coordinator, let's see what they think the coordinator is. I know there's a definition in the statute, but when I read the grant applications, I think that different counties are having different pieces of that role that's defined as the coordinator being picked up by different people. And some of them are coordinators and some of them are data people and some of them are something else. So if we could have that, and this, what does this have to do with Clackamas County is that I'm trying to sort through the desire to be consistent and fair and also figure out, how can I navigate this given my deep concerns that we're maybe not acting as appropriate stewards for the money. And I know some people said, well, this is a formula grant, so just give it to the counties and they get to do what they want. And maybe that's what we were supposed to do, but certainly the legislature didn't say that. And if they did, I wonder why we're even here. Because what would be our role? Other than to check a box and say, well, you putatively met every criteria, even though there's a lot of dispute, for instance, about is the criteria diversion or is it deflection as it was traditionally understood. So anyway, with all of that, thinking about this, Clackamas County has worked hard. They have a program up and ready to go. And I feel like if I don't vote for this, then there's a lot of other applications I shouldn't have voted for either, because some of the same concerns. So I'm willing to vote for Clackamas County as the program is. I know that they originally said that maybe they'd take out line 13. I think that would be a great idea because I do think that it's not necessary to spend that much money on DAs. But at the same time, we voted yes on Washington County, and Washington County has a lot bigger DA piece than Clackamas in terms of percent. So that's what I have to say, and I'm willing to vote now and let's see what they can do. And I wish and I hope that the committee agrees that we really need to pay a lot of attention with timesheets and things like that so that we can really monitor and understand how is this money being spent and where, and also, if, where is the value? What are we getting out of the money? Not just what are they doing, but where are we getting out of it? Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. I really appreciate those comments. And one thing I would just make mention to the committee as folks have lined up to have their thoughts heard is we did do essentially what the judge proposed for Washington County. And so as we're going through our discussion, we need to compile feedback if we do approve, or certainly feedback if we don't approve. And so for those who are in the queue or anybody else, please let me know if you have any objections to the inclusion of any of the items that Judge Shanti mentioned as far as a feedback portion. And then also, it's my understanding that the county is still willing to strike line 13. And so I think that that's something that, yeah, we can make that decision going forward, but I'll kick it over to Dr. Brigham
And
now.
before we go to Dr. Brigham, just so everyone's on the same page, I wanted to clarify what line 13 was, since not everyone may have the budget open. So line 13 is actually position 2 under personnel. It's DDA 2 at 100% time of the month. The total amount associated is $195,996, and the description is the DDA 2 position will take over the existing prosecution responsibilities and caseload of the DDA 3, and will also be responsible for all new cases generated by the new possession charges. So that's the line 13 that has been mentioned before. Dr. Brigham.
Yeah, two things. One is I would prefer not to develop special reporting requirements for a single application. So I think to take Judge Shante's input, I think it will be of interest for us to understand how resources are being used within these grants and portion of FTEs that are being, applied directly to the intended population. So if we create something like that, I would suggest that we apply it across all the programs. I'm not objecting to the recommendations to change line 13, but nor would I require them. I think it would be good for them to review, and I believe they already have, all of the discussion and feedback from the committee about the application and concerns that it's more in the diversions, spectrum of things than in the deflection. And that, of course, we'll be interested in seeing how that shapes up going forward. And then finally, I would make a motion to approve this application.
Thank you, Dr. Brigham. So we have a motion on the floor. I'm not sure if anybody would like to second that at some point, but we can continue some discussion, and perhaps a second could come forward if it's going to as we go through.
This is Curtis Landers. I'll second it to get it on there for the further discussion. I think for Robert's rules, since the motion is on there.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff Landers. So we have a motion and a second, and I know we have 2 people who are still in the queue, and we can continue with them. Actually, 3 people in the queue, and then we'll see where we're at after. First, we have Sam, and then Janie Gullickson, Alicia Beamer, and then I see Senator Gelser has added her name as well. So Sam, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks, Ken. And just some process guidance from you would be helpful. I do have some comments I'd like to make, but if I recall at our last meeting, it did appear that Clackamas County had some points of contact with some committee members with information that we are all not privy to. So while I do want to make my comments, I would be interested in understanding what other people heard from Clackamas County that might have changed their decision or felt like we needed to be here. And then I'm happy to raise my hand again for comments after that.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Yeah, has anybody have a response to the Co-Chair's question? I know that any engagement we've had with the county, and I wouldn't even call it engagement with the county, the letter that we circulated was, I would say, the closest thing that CJC received as engagement from the county. I'm not sure if other folks have had conversations or not. I may be tempted to go to Janie next, but certainly I think your question, Co-Chair, is out on the table, and see if folks have thoughts about additional information. And so I didn't know if you wanted to make additional comments now, Sam, or if you wanted to just wait since you're now 4th in line.
I'm happy to wait as we're all sorting through the order of what we're doing. I just put my hand up so I was in queue again. Thank you.
Sure, perfect. Okay, Janie, go ahead.
Thank you, Ken. Just some comments regarding feedback that I would like to formally share with Clackamas County. I think what was separate and distinct from any other application that I reviewed, and I'm open to being incorrect, but the use of the term defendant throughout the application by nature of its definition implied that the person is in the court process, and therefore in my mind had not been deflected, but was actually eligible then for diversion. And then the exclusion criteria and the success criteria were very broad and subjective, and especially in relation to who was housed and who was unhoused, or who may have had interaction with behavioral health services, SUD services, housing services, and outreach workers, and how those individualized deflection plans would be created, not in a, didn't seem a very person-centered way, but almost exclusionary with open-ended subjective criteria. And so I think those were the things that really stood out for me. And in regards to Judge Shanti's recommendations, I think timesheets would be a little bit intense, but would be curious about a time study. And then with the other recommendation that be, shared throughout all applicants. I would recommend that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Janie. Alicia Beamer, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, a lot of what I was thinking has been shared by Sam and Janie. But just to add, I mean, it seems I would love to hear from Clackamas County, just kind of a little bit more about their program. I felt in reading their application, and I've read it a couple times now, that they have likely lots of really great plans. They just may not be reflected in this. And so want to give them credit for the work and just get it on the record what they've been talking about and what their vision for the program. The other thing is I do appreciate what Dr. Brigham's saying about having all of the applicants, rather than asking for specific things from each one of the 28 applicants, having a standard reporting from all of the applicants, I think would help us better aggregate the data in the long term and be able to evaluate the progress that's being made across the state with all this great work. So those were just my couple of thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Let's go to Senator Gelster-Bluin real quick, and then I just ask while we're thinking for a minute, if anybody has any objection to hearing from Clackamas County after the senator speaks, please, if you could make that known. If the committee kind of by acclamation is willing to hear from them, then Alicia, we can certainly go ahead and give them a few minutes. But Senator, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I think I'm pretty aligned with much of what's been said already. I appreciated Judge Shante's comments about how consistent the decision is with some of the others. I also really do resonate with the issues she raised around the difference between diversion and deflection. And I think that is a really critical piece of successful implementation of House Bill 2004 that really was kind of at the core of it. And ensuring whatever type of reporting back and this ongoing feedback loop that we are helping to really change the system by moving towards this deflection system. And I think I also agree with Judge Shante in that, yes, it's a formula grant, but if we were just going to award everybody the dollars, what's the point of having the committee and the process and making everybody go through the application process? And that's general, that's not just applied to Clackamas County. But I think the idea behind all of this is that what we've been doing before Measure 110 wasn't working, what we were doing after Measure 110 wasn't working, we're continuing to try to get this right. I also agree with Dr. Brigham that it makes the most sense to have common reporting from the grant applicants moving forward. I think among, in addition to some of the other things that we've heard about, I would be very interested in some sort of reporting that helps us see who it is that is being deflected, and if a community also has a diversion program, what the outcomes look like compared to their diversion program. I think if there's anything that we could do within that reporting to help us also better understand the difference on the ground in diversion, deflection, the outcomes, and if there's a difference, if we're looking demographically at the types of individuals, are there some individuals that have more success in one process or another? Like Judge Shante, I do have some concerns when I just kind of think about that idea of deflection and this feeling much more diversion-like. I'm also very aware that September 1st is upon us, and I feel like the choice is between something that may or may not be more diversion than deflection and nothing. And particularly with the striking of line 13, and I wonder if a friendly amendment would be accepted to the motion to accept the grant with the striking of line 13. I think that I'm in a similar place to Judge Shante. And I think the last part in terms of hearing from Clackamas County and kind of some of the comments that Alicia made, I think her point is well taken. When I read through all of the grants, which I did, even though I wasn't able to participate in the meetings, it struck me that I think I had a better understanding, and I know that Chief Herndon is here, but I had a better understanding of Lynn County's application, and I think I understood it differently because I've been out to Chance and I've talked with folks who have been involved in the program, and I have a picture in my mind of what the vision is and how that's working and how it aligns. And I think if I didn't have that, I may not have been able to see that in the words on the paper. And so I think that's part of this ongoing work around how do we describe these, what is the appropriate language, and how do we make sure that we're having that clear piece. So that certainly made me, and I really am grateful to Alicia for that comment, because I thought, yeah, that really is how I thought differently about the Lynn grant than the Clackamas grant application when I read through the first time. But I do think it'd be great to hear from Clackamas County if folks don't have an objection. And I think this is an initial grant, and moving forward, as the grant applications are put out, that there should be a clearness in the criteria, not just around kind of filling out the form, but what is it that we're really trying to get at? And that may require a little bit more work to be very clear, so that we aren't just kind of formalized, run it out via a formula, but we are really encouraging innovation and change that helps us do what everybody on this call, regardless of their perceptions of how we get there, is to really improve access to treatment and reduce the negative impacts of substance use, untreated substance use disorder. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Super briefly, just on a couple of the comments that the Senator made, as far as perhaps looking at demographics or looking at different successful outcomes and tracking those, certainly in Section 75 of 4002, especially from that demographic breakdown standpoint, all of that is built in CJC plan. You know, certainly we're going to fulfill those requirements once data collection starts. And so I just wanted to make that mention that's something we probably don't need to like include in a recommendation today. And then one other brief thing that's been brought up several times is even before we made it this far into the process, I think it was after our first meeting, I mentioned to our staff here at CJC, given the breadth of position types, cost, everything else for these coordinators, I said, you know, we're going to need to reach out to all the counties during report, whether it's part of reporting or whether it's more informal, to figure out what these people are doing as far as coordinators. My hope was even just from that, we could maybe come up with a sample position description, or at least have a better understanding of the varying responsibilities across the counties. And so that's something we will certainly do no matter what, and we would apply that to everyone. We don't view it as like a condition of funding or anything, but it's to let the committee have a better understanding of what coordinators do. If, however, folks would like something more direct than that, I have to admit, when we first had that conversation, we did not think of going all the way to timesheets. But that's now been raised. And so I think that for folks on the committee, you should know that we will certainly be trying to learn as much as we can about what different coordinators do. However, if you would like something that is more than that, like timesheets, then I think that's where it would be great to have people weigh in. And so now I'm going to see, Sam, would you like to jump in now, or should we also, I've not seen anybody object to having Clackamas County say a few words. I don't know if we'd want to let them pop in and do that, and then we can hopefully wrap up our discussion.
I would appreciate it if Clackamas could offer any comments they'd like first.
Great. And I assume, Rep. Conrad, you were not objecting to letting Clackamas County speak. Assuming that's the case, that we can let them jump in and then we can get to your comment afterwards.
Correct. Clackamas County first, please.
Great. And so I know that we have a few folks from the county on. I think we're pretty flexible as to who jumps in to address us. Like I said, I know I saw Bill Stewart and DA Wentworth on, but we'd love to hear from you all now. Any thoughts that you have?
Obviously, I've had an opportunity to hear comments, and thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. A couple of comments that I think it's fair. Regarding, there was a comment about the use of the word defendant. I think that's something that missed my eye in the grant application. I think that's a fair critique of our application and something that can be corrected in the future, especially with regard to deflection. One of my frustrations in this conversation has been hearing about the notion of deflection versus diversion, and that these are conflated in the Clackamas County application. The definition of deflection is it's set out as a collaborative program between law enforcement agencies, plural, and behavioral health entities to assist individuals who may have substance use disorder or another behavioral health disorder or co-occurring disorders to create community-based pathways to treatment, recovery support services, housing, case management, or other services. Our program does that. And the difference between a diversion program and a deflection program, which, by the way, most of us had never heard the word deflection until February of this year, is that diversion can only occur post-charging. It's a diversion from sentencing. Deflection doesn't even get you to charging as long as the program is successful. And so I haven't loved the conversation that this is just a diversion program. It is intended to be an opportunity for folks to get the treatment and help that they need outside of the criminal justice system. We were very open with our service mall idea being tied to our community court. That has worked for us, where folks come to a location. Ours happens to be our courthouse, our juvenile courthouse for that matter, which is away from the main courthouse, to get services through the county and through the nonprofit agencies that we have available to make their treatment a success. That might mean housing, it might mean food, it might mean job opportunities, it might mean other areas of assistance that folks need so that the programs we put in front of them are successful for them. That's our model. It has worked in the past. We are confident it'll work in the future. But when a police officer cites someone, they have to cite them to a location. There has to be somewhere for them to go. It's not somebody's house. For us, that is a court facility. And in my vision of the future, I would love to have a deflection center. Every county in the state would probably like to have that. But no one is in a position to stand one up, not even Multnomah County, as I just read over the weekend. So there is what we can do with the money that is allocated, and there is what everyone, I think, has in their mind as being the best idea, the best model. Where no county is going to set up the best idea, best model. We haven't had the time, and we don't have the money to do that just yet. So what my ask is to bear with us. We're trying. We're trying with the resources we have. We're trying with the talent that we have. Yes, I have an expensive program coordinator. He also happens to be the subject matter expert in my county for setting up this program. So that is the right person to do this. I could have found someone less skilled, less experienced, less money, but we would have been in even deeper trouble, I think, with this application. So I want everyone to remember that this was a deal that was struck to have a deflection program. The DA signed off on it. We have had to double pinky swear to get to this point that we're going to use the money wisely. I don't love the idea of timesheets. There's this whole program, everything that this county, that this committee is allocating is $20 million for every aspect of deflection. And the defense bar was allocated 15 million, and they don't have to fill out timesheets. So I see a double standard there, and you might hear frustration in my voice, but we are trying to make this work. And we are asking you to approve the programs that each county believes will get them there. We know this is an experiment. And I know I will be stealing good ideas from other counties, and they will be stealing ideas from me, both on what to do and what not to do. But we're trying to get this underway. We're doing the best we can. And this is the program that we've put together that we believe, because we've tried it before, we've done it before, we believe will work. So we're just asking for that opportunity.
Thank you, DA Wentworth. Sam, I'll pop it over to you since you have your hand up.
Sure, thank you. And I appreciate the time to allow Clackamas to comment. Just for my discussion, for my part, I did go through the other applications because I know there were some concerns about confusion between deflection, diversion. It is new, it is innovation, it is a collaborative between law enforcement and behavioral health. The place that I continue to return to is that the Clackamas application is the one application that directs people to a court system. that it requires someone to be there on the second or fourth Thursday of the month. The population being served may be houseless, maybe under the influence, without a calendar, without a phone. There is a ineligibility based on turning down housing and treatment opportunities, which is the very nature of a substance use disorder. And they would not be offered deflection. And, you know, in terms of what this committee will ultimately measure, it will be connection to services, but also avoidance of the criminal justice system. And it would be challenging for me to call this deflection when the person is actually called to court first. Other applications, even ones where we kind of wrestled with them, had an outreach component that did not put someone in a court process, that has them needing a public defender, that has them in the legal process. Someone may end up there. Absolutely, we know that. But when I think about deflecting away in any capacity, I do believe that the other applications we approved had an outreach component and did not put somebody right into a court system. And for that, and the idea of making folks who have turned down treatment multiple times ineligible for deflection, my vote will remain no. But I appreciate all the rigorous conversation and the passion behind this and the effort to do really thoughtful and innovative work. Thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Just very briefly, when I read the application, I've got it up on my other screen. I'm so happy to have two screens again and not be in my hotel room. I know that it says that if the defendant is eligible for deflection, and I won't read everything word for word, a program navigator will attempt to contact them before their court appearance. If there is no contact, they will receive the deflection offer at the first appearance at community court. And so I know when I read it, there's a court date set, but I think that the work in between those, because also I know that the court only, it says it meets second or fourth Thursday of every month. So there's that time to hopefully intervene before the court date. And so I just want to make sure, I think we're all reading the same words, but when I read it, I at least get, yes, there is a date, but it's hopefully we're never going to get there. And I know that I saw DA Wentworth's hand raised. Any clarification you have there, I think would be most helpful just on the process briefly, if unless I have it completely correct.
That was why I raised my hand. Thank you for that opportunity. That was exactly the point I wanted to make. Our goal is to have contact with them before they even have that court appearance, but that's what the citation's for. At some point, we're trying to get in touch with the person, and they're still eligible for deflection. If they're eligible, they're eligible. So that's our goal. Our first attempt is to get them into the deflection program. The other thing I want to hasten to add is this discussion sounds like the criminal justice system is a failure. And what I mean by that is if you get to that point, this whole thing is a failure. It is not. It provides an additional tool. That's why the legislature voted for this. It provides an additional tool for folks to get the treatment that they need, which can be through a conditional discharge, a diversion away from a possible sentencing. And only then, if that is unsuccessful, we allocate a full-blown sentencing with the probation officer. So step after, and then there's expunction that comes after that. So at every step, there's an attempt to keep people out of the criminal justice system, not go too deep into the criminal justice system. Then if they're there, to have a remedy for which this won't affect them for the rest of their lives. So I think what the legislature has done is remarkable. I'm in support of it, and I appreciate Ken's comments, because that was exactly what I wanted to point out. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And just a quick time check for committee members. We're one individual above quorum, so we certainly need to wrap this up before 1, if at all possible. We have 3 folks in the queue. So I'm tempted to call the question after these 3 folks, unless I see anybody who hasn't spoken yet raise their hand. And if you do, please keep your comments efficient. Rep. Conrad, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I will try to be efficient, wrapping up a number of things and rolling them up. The first one, just the timesheet issue. One thing that I would be cognizant of is too much detail and getting into it. There are so many different time reporting requirements that cities and counties and everybody uses to try and come up with it and to try and get CJC staff to start parsing through and understanding codes and why things are being that granular. I would be cautious about it. A qualitative roll up and a narrative, I think, is important. And why I say that is because the data collection side of this ultimately is going to go back to the legislature. And the legislature is going to have to evaluate the efficacy of the programs and the ability to whether they need to refine any of the definitions, any of the requirements, any of the funding, to be able to have data that is actually useful and important in that decision making, I think is going to be critical. So keeping an eye with who else is going to see this data other than the committee, and what CJC is going to report when it goes and sits before, a judicial committee or behavioral health committee to talk about some of these things. So I appreciate everything that DA Wentworth said. I think he said it really well. And what these programs right now at this point, they're not meant to be perfect. We know, and I voted in favor of this bill, and I voted in favor of knowing that these programs are going to be imperfect and that they're going to, cheat. They're going to steal from each other. They're going to learn the lessons and they're going to refine it. And again, all that will go back to the legislative processes to help out and to refine the money requirements, all those kind of things. And with respect to the diversion versus deflection conversation, part of the conversations, at least that I had, and part of why I voted for it, it's that understanding that you need to have, I hate the phrase, but the stick over somebody's head to try and see if you can trigger that moment of clarity, that epiphany, to get them into that treatment, knowing that this system is not going to work for everybody, but this will open the door for some. And we needed a second door for some that aren't going to take it up front. And that's where the conditional discharge comes in. And those folks that aren't going to take conditional discharge, that's why you've got that third process of actually going before a judge. This was meant to open as many doors as we can to get that moment of clarity, to get that epiphany, so they can seek treatment. Again, this is an R&D type endeavor, and we need to grow from it and learn from it. And the data that we collect is going to be very important. So I appreciate all the collection, the information collection that you and your staff are doing, Ken, and I look forward to the reporting and all that. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Rep. Conrad. Senator Gelser-Bluen.
Thank you. I know we need to wrap up on time, but I was also hoping that maybe DA Wentworth could provide a clarification. I was less comfortable with moving towards supporting the application after the comments, and that's because the concerns that I had weren't based on not having a center or a place that people went to. It really was in the crux of that deflection versus diversion, and that these grants were for something new and different, not diversion, deflection, which is different, which is pre-charging, which is not going to the community court. And I was concerned from and again, I don't expect it to be perfect. And I agree with Representative Conrad that I hope everybody's stealing really good ideas from each other. And it's also not my perspective that diversion is bad or should go away. This whole conversation is in the frame of these grants for establishing deflection programs. So what I heard from the comments from DA Wentworth, and maybe I misunderstood them, which is why I'm asking for a clarification, was a rejection of the idea that it's an appropriate conversation to look at the difference between deflection and diversion and ensure that these funds, this grant is focused on deflection, because that's what this grant is about. And the reason that my comfort was shaken was my understanding was that there had been these conversations that line 13, that the county was willing to strike line 13, which addresses a big piece of that, and that the county was open to feedback around making sure that we're moving into deflection, and that in that idea of not perfect, we're moving forward, but with a strong eye towards making sure this is moving towards deflection rather than diversion. What I heard in the comments was something a little different. So I'm just wondering if you could clarify, DA Wentworth, your openness to that discussion of deflection versus diversion, as well as the commitment to striking the line 13. That would help me a lot. with the vote that we.
Yeah, yes, of course. I'm not afraid of conversation at all. I'm a lawyer, so that's not a challenge. My frustration has been, I believe that this program, Clackamas County's program, has been mischaracterized as a diversion and not a deflection. It meets the definition that the legislature set out for what a deflection program is. And beyond that, what is the difference fundamentally between a deflection program and a diversion program? That's, to me, I'm bringing new information to this group because I think that notion has been mischaracterized in these conversations. Deflection is pre-charging, gets you away from the criminal justice system. That's what our deflection program does. Diversion occurs after a person has been charged. So that's what the conditional discharge language is. It's a diversion program. So I'm trying to clarify rather than confuse, because I believe that that definition has been mischaracterized in these conversations. That's all.
Thank you, DA Wentworth. Judge Shanti, why don't you wrap us up?
Ken, first, there was also a question about line 13.
DA Wentworth, is the county still willing to strike line 13, especially if that's what this committee would desire?
Yes.
Thank you. Judge Shanti.
Well, the DA Wentworth's comments just point out what I said at the beginning and what was some of our discussion. We've had it over and over. There's a disagreement about what that definition means in the context of the total statute, in the context of its wording. I am of the opinion that, you know, it was not very long ago that the main thing that counties were doing was where they were doing an analysis to figure out where their gaps were in the intercept model. And in my view, what the legislature intended was intercept 0 and 1. And that is before there's any charging, 0 and 1. So it might, you know, we're talking about language, and it might be good if at some point the committee can come back, not about just an individual application, but come back and talk about all of that and talk about how to talk about it. Because, you know, intercept 0 and intercept 1 is different than intercept 2. So with due respect to the district attorney, there were other people all last week that aren't here today that broke apart the statute, did an analysis, and came up to an entirely different conclusion. And I respect both opinions. They're both plausible about what the legislature intended. And that's the conundrum we're in. What did it intend? Because it's not clear, as clear as I think it would been helpful for us. So with that, I also want to say that I never intended when I was talking about timesheets that it would be just for one program. I think overall, we need to look at these, in particular, the coordinator positions, and look at what are the different counties doing as that job and who's doing it, and then measure that and figure out if we can have some general standards or something like that. So with that, I'm kind of with the senator here. I'm a little bit more concerned now about the Clackamas County application than I was when I first started this whole conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Dr. Brigham, real quick.
Yeah, I'm just going to say I have a hard stop at the end of our hour.
Thank you.
Yeah. Call the question.
That's my plan. I do want to ask, though, if you, Dr. Brigham, would be willing to accept a friendly amendment to include striking line 13, and then that's what we can vote on momentarily.
Yes.
Thank you. Any objections from the committee members to striking line 13 as far as adding that to the motion? Okay, hearing none. So the motion that we have on the table that was seconded, I'm trying to remember now by whom. Casey, if you could help me there, just for the record. Was it Chief Harnden?
Sheriff Landers.
Oh, Sheriff Landers. Boy, our other lines. Sorry, Sheriff. So we have a motion on the floor from Dr. Brigham to approve Clackamas County's application. A friendly amendment was accepted to strike line 13 for the second DA position, which accounts to almost $196,000. That was seconded by Curtis Landers. Let's call the question. And so, Will, I believe you're going to be taking our roll call vote.
Yes, Ken, thank you. Co-chair Sam Byers.
No.
Co-chair Ken Sanchagrin.
Yes.
Judge Shanti.
Yes.
Jeremiah Stromberg. Liz Weber. Steve Gunnels.
Yes.
Eric Swallow. Chief Harnden.
Yes.
Commissioner Hall. I'm sorry, Commissioner Hall, was that a yes or a no?
I'm sorry, it sounds garbled, Commissioner. Casey, we don't have the ability to do a chat confirmation. Is that correct?
That's correct. Maybe Commissioner can try calling into the phone real quick. We still might have 10 for quorum purposes if we continue the vote. And I'll try to connect with the Commissioner.
Yeah, let's continue and get that fixed. Yeah.
I will continue. Alicia Beamer.
Yes.
Stacy Brubaker.
Yes.
Dr. Brigham.
Yes.
Sheriff Landers.
Yes.
Dr. Stanfill. Janie Gullickson.
Yes.
RJ Navarro. Michelle Mason. Paul Solomon. I believe that is 9, Casey.
Well, and just real quick, I'm not sure if Carl McPherson has joined us. He would be on our list as well. I don't believe he is present, though.
No, I apologize, kid. No, Carl McPherson.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
Commissioner Hall, do you want to try one more time? See if we can hear you.
Could maybe thumbs up for yes or a raise hand for no?
Yeah, would you be able to maybe provide a reaction in Teams, a thumbs up for yes or a raised hand for no? Oh, a visual thumbs up as
Even
a
better.
yes.
Yeah, thank
Yes.
you, Commissioner. Apologies. Unfortunately, you sound like Donald Duck. It's garbled at the moment. So thank you for humoring us. So I believe that means the motion passes. And I believe the feedback that this committee has come up with is that applied to all programs. And as I already stated, this is something that we as staff had planned to do, is to ensure that we understand what these positions are being used for, especially the coordinator positions. I do not believe, let me see if we had any other feedback. No, I think that's it. Yes, Co-Chair Byers.
The only other feedback is one that I mentioned, and that's just around, I would like them to consider the idea of allowing people who have turned down housing and treatment before to be part of the deflection program.
Thank you, Co-Chair. And that's one thing. This is feedback for all of our applicants. We've been asked by the legislature to keep tabs on program participation and success rates. And if we're going to be justifying future funding for programs to the legislature, I can honestly say the last thing that I would like to be is in the chair of defending a program where we have very few participants or very few successful folks. And so I think that's something for all that we'll be examining. And so hopefully if there are some programs that prove just from a data perspective to be more restrictive than others, those are conversations we can have at the next funding round, assuming that we have that in the future. So I want to thank everybody for coming on today. I see Dr. Brigham's hand is up, but I assume that's left over from before. Thank you, Dr. Brigham. So thank you, everybody. I know this was one meeting that turned into 4. I appreciate everybody's hard work. and we are at time. So we'll just let everybody go, and thank you all for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you.
Bye, Dr. Brigham.